Hi, I'm Elizabeth Mahusay, host of the podcast Thinking That Matters.
Hey everyone, Rich Cavaness here, and today I have the most amazing opportunity and privilege and honor to interview on our podcast today the new international best-selling author, Elizabeth Mahusay, with her book, Pick Your Path. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You
yes.
deserve that one.
Yes, I'm so
Elizabeth
excited.
and I go back a long way because not only have we written books at the same time together, we attended a author program together, and that was amazing.
Then we developed
yes, and
a
we
writing
developed our own
writing
where we
program.
help other people write books too. So it's been amazing, and we do coaching together.
Yes.
So professionally, we have a lot going on. So that's been great. So today I'm actually very excited about having you here because, and this is the first time I've actually held it in my hand. So I'm very. I didn't write this book, but I know what it's like when you put a book together.
That's
it's
right.
like,
exactly.
It's so exciting.
Very exciting.
So congratulations on that. That's
thank you.
great. So Pick Your Path. You can get it on Amazon, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Kindle,
Yes.
soft cover, all that. Okay, great. So I have some questions for you. I've been thinking a lot about this book, and so I've actually got them pretty organized here so we can move quickly because I want to be able to have you give a lot of information to the listeners. All right, so let's just jump into this. Is there anything else that you want to add as far as who Elizabeth Mahusay is and anything like that?
That's probably helpful.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
So I, of course, am an author. This is my third published book, and an executive business coach and a keynote speaker. And the cool thing about this book is it's actually developed as a result of one of my signature keynotes that is titled Pick Your Path, How to Set Your Mental Autopilot on the Right Course. And I know we'll dive in on that, but this book is very much connected as a result of
I had the privilege, by the way, I don't know if you remember, but up in Denton, I actually watched you present this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you spoke up there.
That's right.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You did.
We were working at Southwestern.
At a conference. Yes, at a conference.
Yes, so I actually saw you speak on this, so it's really incredible to actually see
Very
it come to fruition in book
thank
form.
you.
So.
Thank you. So the rest I'll save for our conversation because I know it'll be woven in there.
Yeah, for sure. So as far as about the book goes, give everybody kind of a quick overview of what it really means and what it's about. Pick your path.
So the idea of Pick Your Path is you're picking a path between two thought processes. So for example, every day we have the opportunity to pick a path of positive thinking or a path of negative thinking. Mm-hmm. And actually, let's face it, that could be many moments of every day that we're having to pick that path. So the concept of the book is to give them 21 days of individual lessons where they're picking a path as it is laid out. Now, some paths are better than other paths. It's typically better to have positive thinking over negative thinking. But some paths both could be equally beneficial. It really depends on the person, what they're wanting to accomplish, where they're going. And so they're going to pick a path that makes the most sense for them based on the circumstances they're in or the direction that they're wanting to head. But that's the idea, is that they're picking a better path of thinking, and that the whole byline of to set your mental autopilot on the right course. The thought process there is what we don't realize is that we think something so much that we begin to believe it. Mm-hmm. And as we believe it, then we begin to act on it without thinking about it. Well, as we begin to believe it, we are running into our mental autopilot. Well, if the mental autopilot is off course, that can lead to some crashes. That can lead to some poor choices that maybe precede those crashes. So the idea is that we want to set our mental autopilot on the right course by picking our path of thinking better on a daily basis.
And when I saw the book, what was really interesting to me is that it reminded me, just real quick, I know it's not this, but it reminded me like of a devotional, because it's broken down into 21 days, and each of the chapters is like really short, and it's got reflection questions in it and key points. And so I can actually see, like I told you, I'm excited for my my wife Libby and I to go through this, because this is an easy thing to go through, like with your spouse. I mean, you could do this with some friends. You could do this at a small group, at a church, something like that. But I really love the way you put this together. It's like really easy to kind of go through.
My thought was I wanted it to be short. I wanted the days to be where someone could read it 3 minutes, 4 minutes max. One, so they're more likely to actually get through the entire book. And two, the whole goal of the book is implementation of the thinking, right? So I want to bring awareness to different paths of thinking. I want to give them, I use a lot of stories in the book to help them relate and to see themselves in the midst of those stories. And then through the reflection questions to really determine, how am I going to implement this today? And of course, I chose 21 days because when I'm speaking, almost always when I ask people, what's the accepted number of days that it takes to build a habit? Always we get 21. And while 21 isn't necessarily always the answer, depending on how complex a habit is, I knew that for a person thinking, I want to change my thinking, 21 will feel achievable.
Absolutely.
It'll feel doable. And ideally it leaves them hungry to get more of it.
Yeah. For sure. No, that's great. It's really outlined beautifully, and I'm very, very excited for people to start going through that. So how did you conduct the research for this book? Because I know you're a researcher. And were there any surprise findings? I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so from a research standpoint, some of it has been the research of life. Fred and I, and you'll hear about this in the book, or you'll read about it in the book. We made a cross-country move from Florida to Texas. We restarted as two entrepreneurs that were completely commission-based in an area where we had no friends, no family. And in our minds, it was going to be easy, which was not the case. So some of the research was just the reality that I was faced with in that move and the challenge that it presented me, because I had been talking about good thinking for a long time. I'd already been in sales a good 10 years, and we'd already been building the Fred Shots business for 10 years. But I was faced with new challenges that was really forcing me to really face the reality of I've got to develop new skills in my thinking, or I'm going to crash and burn, or I'm going to have to step out of entrepreneurism, and go back to a typical 8 to 5 or something like that. So the first point of research was just living life as an entrepreneur, where Fred and I like to say, don't work, don't eat. So, you have to figure out how to get your thinking in alignment to just go day to day to day to day in order to build a business. The second was I have a chemistry degree. I love science, and I actually love the study of the brain. So I spent about 5 years consuming as much as I could research around the brain and how the brain has been created for transformation. So think, authors like Dr. Carolyn Leaf, Dr. Carol Dweck, also some well-known brain researchers that, someone could find, for example, on an Amazon Prime or other resources. I looked at everything from research studies done on folks who have had strokes and the cognitive rehabilitation therapy that they take them through, to individuals that are suffering with PTSD, whether that be because they were on the battlefield or they were in a life-changing accident. And what are the ways that researchers have been successful in helping them to rewire their brain? So really looking at the neuroplasticity of the brain, how it works, and taking my love of chemistry, and I taught high school for 10 years, taking the skill that I developed there of how do you take a very complex, detailed science that is very difficult to understand because you cannot see it, touch it, feel it, like, say, physics or some of the others, and speak it in layman's terms where people can consume it and go, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And so I spent about 5.5 years really just taking in as much as I could and practicing on groups of people how I would communicate it. And that led to my very first book on thought transformation called Transform My Thinking, God, where I really began to speak it in front of audiences, and I have a whole study on it where that's concerned. This book is designed ideally for the entrepreneur, the small business owner, the sales leader, the executive, or it could be for the husband and wife. It could be for the teenager who just graduated high school and is now going off and looking to build a career, or any of those avenues really. But it is very much about the science behind how do we get on board with getting our brain to undergo transformation.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I was watching a tennis match the other day because Wimbledon's going on right now. And one of the players decided to take, I think they can take like a 10 or 15 minute break in the middle of the match. They weren't playing very well, and they just needed to kind of get their head on straight. And it really, that what you just said just really communicated that to me, because, you know, sometimes you just have to kind of just redo it. It's like a redo. And they went back to the locker room, took their 10 minutes, came back out, and it was like they kind of like restarted again. And that's great. That's really what neuroplasticity is all about, isn't it? It's you can actually literally retrain your brain to do, you know, to go from being negative or maybe thinking a wrong thought to thinking the thoughts that you need to think to get where you want to go.
Absolutely. And a lot of what the neuroscientists will call that are pattern. And what I use in layman's terms is pattern disruptors. You know, in Wimbledon, that person's in a pattern. It happens to be that pattern was not playing well, right? They were in a pattern of probably poor choices, misjudgments, not as agile as they needed to be on the court. This is just, you know, verbalizing what you're saying. But we need a pattern disruptor. Pattern disruptors can come in many forms. That can be a different podcast, but we need pattern disruptors. And it's in a sense, it's how we tell the brain, change your course of thinking. And a great example that I have in my own life where often I have to pattern disrupt is because I suffer from tinnitus. So I have constant ringing in my ears 24/7. And there is no cure per se for tinnitus. You can manage it, but without my hearing aids in, and especially if I'm highly fatigued, the ringing is so loud that it can cause an onset of a panic attack, because if you feel like you cannot escape this crazy noise. And so what I've had to tell myself, and some of the way that comes on is I might feel nauseated, I might have dizziness come on. And so if you what you think about expands. So I have to pattern disrupt. I have to say, you're not sick. This is the ringing in your ears. And then I have to move myself to one of my ways of managing it, which, for example, is listening to white noise. And that's how I disrupt the thinking of my brain that you're sick when I know I'm not, and to shift it in a different direction. And so pattern disruptors are very, very powerful.
Yeah, they really are. And I don't know about you, but if you haven't gotten a lot out of this already, I mean, you can just listen to Elizabeth speak and you're like, wow, I need to get the 21 days just to kind of consume all of this. But please make sure you get her book, Pick Your Path. And yeah, that's great stuff. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some reader engagement.
Okay.
So, you know, how do you hope that readers are going to feel about completing the 21-day journey outlined in the book? What are you wanting them to get?
So let's start first with the individual. Okay, an individual who picks up the book and they're going to go through the 21 days. I highly encourage the reader, make sure you engage the reflection questions. And as much as humanly possible, write down responses to the reflection questions.
Yes.
I give space in the book for you to actually write in the book. I know some of you just got a little shudder because I said write in the book. But I want you to write in the book. It literally is meant to become a thinking workbook. It is a tool, a resource that an individual could use to self-coach their way to better thinking. Okay. So engagement for the individual is not only to read it, but to also pause on those reflection questions and really like work through what those questions are asking. A second form of engagement is that you do it in a small group. So, for example, in Southwestern Consulting that Rich and I both are part of, I have groups going on. We call them circles. We have circles going on. And we all engage in a book similar to this. And we will get on Marco Polo and we'll talk about what we have gotten from that day, or how it hit us, or where we're struggling, or what we're going to focus on in terms of implementation. So it could be done in a small group setting. I had a gal in Indiana recently where it was my first opportunity to have the book out. She bought 15 of them in order for their whole team within the office to go through the book, and then they would have discussions on each day and what that's going to look like as for each individual to think better, and then for the team to perform better as a result of each individual thinking better. So really my vision for this book is that we have whole corporations saying every single employee gets this book.
Yeah.
And that this is something that we really use to help shift the culture of thinking in the workplace so that people are better able to manage life that's going on and the workplace management that's necessary for them to actually be productive there.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, it's such a coaching thing, isn't it? At the end of all of our chapters and each of our books, we always have coaching questions and things
Basically.
that we have people, you know, because your desire is that you want people to get something out of your book. It's not just to be, it's not a promotional piece. It's not meant to be, you know, some books are, you know, purely marketing. This is literally coaching and teaching and helping people to actually improve their lives. So
Absolutely.
I do appreciate that, and that's awesome. Let's see here. The other question I had for you was, how has writing this book kind of impacted your life? You know, I mean, you and I are authors, and so we know that when you write a book, there's the person actually influenced the most is the person is yourself. So I'm just curious how this book has impacted you, maybe even like your relationship with Fred, you know, your husband, and just, you know, your friends and that kind of thing. But what's been the impact for you?
Man, it is a really, really good question. I think what I've learned over the course of my writing, because, you know, when I first really started writing, aside from getting my degrees, and, you know, you have to write in order to get degrees. When I was really began writing women's Bible studies, something that I learned very clearly early on is that you need to live the message that you're going to be teaching or speaking, or in this case, writing. And that's really that's one of the biggest impacts. The book, I've been living these lessons, and some days I've lived them well, and other days I've been abysmal. And speaking of my husband, Fred, where he'll hear me going into a downward negative thinking spiral, and he'll be like, "Aren't you the woman who wrote the book, Transform My Thinking?" Like, and I'm just saying, for the listener and the watcher, he does layer in the sarcasm because he knows I can receive it, because I'm like, "You're right. I am." You know, and that's so.
Yeah, exactly.
So part of it, and I do build stories into the book where I want the reader to understand I've not perfected this, right? I'm still a work in progress, and I write out of that. And that, Rich, I will say, maybe that's really the true answer to this question, because I feel a little bit of the emotion creeping up in my mind, is that I struggled for so many years to be vulnerable. I picked a path of thinking that I had to have it all together. I had to dress like I had it all together, speak like I had it all together.
That was part of your identity.
Very much so. And I did not want, because in my mind, I had chosen a thought and believed that if I wasn't perfect or projected perfection, I wouldn't be accepted, I wouldn't be followed, I wouldn't be respected, and I certainly wouldn't be promoted. And so I lacked vulnerability. It's not that I didn't wake up thinking, "Oh, I'm so perfect." I knew I wasn't, but I allowed people to believe that I was. And so part of my journey over the last 20 plus years has been learning the value of vulnerability. And guess what? Vulnerability, that's a path, which mental note to self that needs to be in the next book, right? Pick your path, vulnerability versus perfectionism or something along those lines.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's ultimately the answer to your question is that the book is really an outgrowth of my own desire to truly live, to speak, teach, write, and coach vulnerably.
Yeah. It's kind of funny that you mentioned that because when I had a previous life where I did senior pastor work, and we were where we were living, and my license plate was Bible Man. And it was a Volkswagen Bug, so it was one of those new Volkswagen Bugs, and I would speed and cut in and out of traffic and everything, and my daughter would always go, "Hey, Bible Man, aren't you supposed to be obeying the law?" So it just kind of reminded me about this image that you kind of portray, and I've certainly over my lifetime I've had some pretty serious issues with identity and things like that. And so that was one of the reasons that prompted me. I think the beautiful thing about what you're doing, Elizabeth, with your book, Pick Your Path, is that you're taking your personal experience and your research. So it's kind of a literal combination of psychology, science, spirituality, personal experience. It's kind of all thrown into one. And I think that makes a very powerful book, and something that people can really relate to. So, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. How do you think that shifting one's mental autopilot can impact the other areas of their life? So, let's just say somebody's not doing well in maybe like their marriage relationship, but they're doing really well professionally. So they might be just focusing a lot more on their professional life because it's not going as well. But what would you say to somebody like that that's really struggling, like maybe in an area of their life with their thinking?
Well, your initial question was, how does shifting one's mental autopilot impact other areas of their life?
Yeah.
I think probably let's just use the example of driving. Oftentimes when we drive from point A to point B every day, multiple times a day, it's very easy to stop thinking about where we're going because we don't need to. Because part of how our brain conserves resources in our conscious mind is it wants to move as much as possible to our subconscious mind. Mm-hmm. Thus, the mental autopilot. It's happening without you having to think about it. And so, for example, in a marriage that's not going well, the mental autopilot there is it's not going well, so I'll avoid it. That's one possible pathway, correct? Yes. I mean, there's many, but that's just as an example. And so we get into this mental autopilot of avoid, which means no change can effectively happen if we're in constant avoidance. And so when you begin to read a book like Pick Your Path, and one's coming, around marriage, but you read a book like Pick Your Path and you start becoming aware of a need for a shift in thinking. And what it does is it disrupts our mental autopilot, and we have a choice. We can choose to say no to this mental autopilot path we've been on, in this case, avoidance, and instead we can choose a path of engagement. Mm-hmm. Now, we recognize that engagement can be both positive and negative. And one of the chapters in the book, I talk about the fear cycle, where fear causes us to not take action. Mm-hmm. And when we don't take action, we never get experience. And when we don't get experience, we feel like we're not capable. And the more we feel incapable, the bigger the fear becomes, thus the fear cycle. And so the beauty of disrupting our mental autopilot is that we are able to bring back to the conscious mind, I actually have a choice here. Mm. I don't have to continue down this path. I can choose a different path. And the cool thing is when you explore the different path, doesn't mean that everything is perfect. You get experience. Some is positive, some is negative. Yeah. But if you choose to fail forward and you learn from even the negative experience, that's where you gain the capability to not just say I ignore the fear or even try to leap over the fear, but to truly abolish the fear through a courageous action that you're willing to take by picking that better path.
Yeah. I was just thinking as you were talking about, and by the way, again, I'm trying to do as much promo here as we can.
I appreciate
Pick
it.
your path. You got to get this book. It's tremendous. And today went international bestseller, UK,
Australia and Canada.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations,
it's so exciting.
Man. It's
so
amazing.
exciting.
It really is. It is. But on the fear thing, in your research, have you found that a lot of fear tends to be made up and it's not actually real? Or what is your perception and your study of fear, and especially in the chapter that when you're talking about the fear,
about fear, the fear cycle?
Yeah, the fear cycle.
Okay, so that obviously that's a very potential complex topic. For the purpose of our time today, I would say that there are fears that are legitimate. Okay, and we don't want to. I don't want to minimize a fear that's legitimate, because an example. My best friend from high school, Heather, her grandmother died of cancer. Her mother died of cancer. Her 2-year-old had cancer and then died at 7 years old with a second round of cancer. She had legitimate fear that cancer was going to impact her life. That's legitimate. And I would not want to minimize it or dismiss it. It's what we do with the fear oftentimes that is the critical pick of the path, right? Because sometimes fear is false evidence appearing real. And I know you know that, and we hear it a lot. But I think a lot of times we've heard it so much that people, they just ignore it. And what happens is, because what we think about expands, then that fear can overtake us. And now we don't take action. Versus legitimate fear, it's choosing to engage. And maybe you go get like she went and got a genetic test. She went and had, the checkups and to do all of the things. So it's important that we don't minimize fear, but we also are always looking to test. Is it false evidence appearing real? Is it legitimate? And now, based on our responses there, we pick a path of how we engage it.
Yeah, that's tremendous. And I know that our time's running out here. Again, pick your path. Tremendous book. I'm actually very excited about reading it. Last thing I wanted to just ask you about. So, future projects. You had actually shared with me just a little bit before we came on that you actually kind of your vision for Pick Your Path. Why don't you share that with the listeners?
So my vision is that this is an entire series. So this is Pick Your Path, 21 days to set your mental autopilot on the right course. I have a Pick Your Path, 21 days to set your marriage on the right course. Pick Your Path, 21 days to set your parenting on the right course. Pick Your Path. And I believe I'll call this one 21 devotionals to set spiritual life on the right course. I'm not sure. It could be prayer life. I haven't quite figured that one out, but I envision this as being a whole series. And actually, I truly believe too, because I have such a heart for high schoolers and college age, that I could do a Pick Your Path 21 days to set your study life on the right course.
There you go. Love it.
Yeah.
So, Elizabeth, I can already see it. I'm visualizing this. You're going to become the 21-day guru. I can see it already. All right. All of your books.
I'll take it. I'll receive it.
You'll be the new chicken soup for the soul for 21 days. So.
I mean, we laugh about that, but that was the thought that I had, that this is the type of thing that it's transformational for people.
Yeah.
And if we can do it in small chunks and work on different areas of our life over time, imagine what a difference that it would make, not only for the individual, for the couple, for the relationships, for the friendships, for the parents, for the kids. I'm super passionate about it.
I know, I can tell. And I am beyond grateful, not only for your friendship, but also just to be honored and be blessed to be able to be here, interview you. Is this your first interview for the book? Or
it is.
Oh, right. Well,
You will always get to hold that honor.
There you go. There you go.
I love it.
Yeah. So I'm really proud of you, and I'm grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Do you have any closing comments?
Yes, I want to encourage you. You can go to Amazon and find both the Kindle version as well as the paperback version. Also, if you or someone that you know schedules speakers for events, then I want to encourage you, reach out on my website, elizabethmahusay.com. Click on my speaker tab, and we can have a conversation around what that might look like to serve you in that way.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Hopefully it's been highly educational and very exciting for you today. Thank you.